Shalom, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the enemy and his pursuit. Let's start in Exodus 15, and we'll be reading verses 1 through 18. Then Moshe, and this was a priest who was leading them, as we know from Psalms that he was a priest. Then Moshe and the children of Yisrael sang this song to Yahweh and spoke, saying, I sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and my song, and he has become my deliverance. He is my El, and I praise him. He is our deliverance. Elohim of my father, and I exalt him. Yahweh is a man of battle, hallelujah. Yahweh is his name. He has cast Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea, and his chosen officers are drowned in the sea. As we know, Egypt being a picture of the world, and Pharaoh being its leader, we see that he has chosen officers. The depths covered them. They went down to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become great in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has crushed the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you pulled down those who rose up against you. You set forth your wrath. It consumed them like stubble. Seems to be there's another day we'll be seeing some of that same thing. And with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up. The floods stood like a wall. The depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. The enemies said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil. My being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. That is the verse that we will be focusing on. But let's continue on. Verse 10, You did blow with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great in set-apartness, awesome in praises, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your loving commitment, you led the people, whom you have redeemed in your strength. You guided them to your set-apart dwelling, just as we are being guided to his set-apart dwelling. He is the one who has redeemed us. This set-apart dwelling is a place of beauty and comfort where one resides for a long period of time. Peoples heard, they trembled, anguish gripped the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, grips them. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Fear and dread fell on them. By the greatness of your arm, they are as silent as stone. Until your people pass over, O Yahweh, until the people whom you have bought to pass over. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. We know that at this point they were on their way to the mountain, which should have been at that point their inheritance with Yahweh. O Yahweh, which you have made for your own dwelling. This dwelling is to remain, to settle for a long period of time. It's to press to the tent. In the Strongs, we can even see it means causatively to marry. The set-apart place. This is a set-apart place for a special purpose. The set-apart place, O Yahweh, which your hands have prepared. We also see that this is a place with a firm foundation. And in verse 18 we read, Yahweh reigns forever and ever. Hallelujah. We see the words we're going to look at in Exodus 15:6 and 15:9. 15:6. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become great in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has crushed the enemy. 15:9. The enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil. My being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. What is this enemy's function? What is this pursuit of his and of ours? And exactly what does his being satisfied on them mean? First, let's look at the word enemy. It's Strong's H341, an active participle of H340, hating, an adversary. The Strong's H340 is a primitive root, to hate, as one of an opposite tribe or party, hence to be hostile. The enemy should be opposite of who we are. We see in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary the word adversary, an enemy or foe, one who has enmity at heart. I will put enmity between your seed and her seed, and this seed is planted in our heart. These seeds are planted in our heart. Yahweh shall take vengeance on his adversaries. Nahum 1. In Scripture, Satan is called the adversary. An opponent or antagonist, and that he certainly is, and so is this other seed that's twisted. An opponent or antagonist, as in a suit at law or a single combat, an opposing litigant. As we look back into the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see that it is at 1002 MG. At G, we see its enemy. At the M root, the action is hostile, the concrete is spear, and the abstract is enemy. The tent pole is pointed at one end and doubles as a spear which can be used against the enemy to defend. Also a support of the family. At the two-letter family root, we have the L in the bait. The action is to stand, the concrete is a pole. The pictograph L represents strength, and the bait represents a tent. Combined, these mean the strength of the house. This can be the tent poles which hold up the tent, the house, as well as the father who holds up the family, the household. So we see in our word we have the L, the Wa, the Yod, and the bait. The enemy's total function is to come against, exalt himself above the strength of the house, against El himself, against those El is securing, the Wa, those who he has stretched out his arm to, the Yod, those doing his works, those whose goal is to be and or remain in the house of Elohim. Turning to Psalm 136, verses 10 through 15. To him who smote Mitzrayim in their firstborn, for his kindness is everlasting, and brought out Yisrael from their midst, for his kindness is everlasting. With a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, there is a people who he has stretched out his arm to, and there is a people whom he's stretching out his arm to with a strong hand. Is not going to be a good thing, for his kindness is everlasting. To him who split apart the sea of reeds, for his kindness is everlasting, and made Yisrael pass through the midst of it, for his kindness is everlasting, but shook off Pharaoh and his army in the sea of reeds, the enemy, the world, shook him off, for his kindness is everlasting. Turning to Psalm 119, verses 161 and 162, we see rulers, we see these people in authority have persecuted me without a cause. But at your word, at the debar, at the seed that's planted in our hearts, We should be standing in awe, just like the psalmist. I rejoice at your word as one who finds great treasure. Do you suppose this is what the enemy just might be after? The next word we're going to look at is pursue. In some translations, it's persecute. Strong's H7291, radaf, a primitive root, to run after, usually with hostile intent, figuratively of time gone by. In the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, we see pursue. To follow with the view to overtake, to follow with haste, to chase, to follow with enmity, there we see our enmity again, to persecute. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it at 2755V. The V is pursue, to pursue in chase or persecution. 2755 root, we see the resh, the dal, and the pay. The action is pursue, but we see it coming from the two-letter parent root of resh gam. Going back to the resh gam, it's at the ancient Hebrew lexicon, 1440. The action is to trample, the concrete is rug, and the abstract is thought. The pictograph resh is a picture of the head of man. The gam is a picture of a foot. Combined, these mean man of feet. The treading underfoot of something, a woven rug as something tread upon. I'm wondering if we ever feel trampled on by the enemy, in the physical or in our thoughts that comes from the seed, other seed that's been planted in our heart. So we'd see the letters, the resh, the dal, and the pay. The resh is the head of man, top, beginning, first, think. The dal is a picture of a door, back and forth movement, in, go in the door. And the pay is the mouth. It means to breathe or breath or breathe forth a word. So we see the enemy is pursuing those who are pursuing the head. Those who have cut themselves off from him as the head and now are pursuing the head. Those who have the head at the forefront of their mind. Put on the mind of Messiah. Striving to enter the door by following the word that was breathed, which is the seed of Yeshua, that's Yahweh's redemption that's been planted in your heart, the word. As a side note, he is the head, he is the door, and he is the word that was breathed. Those coming back to the mount, here in our verses in Exodus, same thing. And now those headed to be first fruits in the first resurrection, from whom the bride will be pulled. The enemy's seed is at enmity with the seed of Yahweh. Those of us nurturing and watering the seed of Yahweh. Not only does he pursue in the physical, but in our thoughts, which come from the seed, we are watering and nurturing in our hearts. Apparently, Psalm 119, 161, and verses 162 are extremely important because it's on this slide and the next slide as well. Rulers have persecuted me. They've come after me. They've chased me because I'm seeking the head, striving to enter the door by the word that was originally breathed. This is without a cause. But at your word, my heart stood in awe. I rejoiced at your word as one who finds great treasure. And wherever your heart is, there your treasure will be also. John 15, verses 16 through 19. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you, that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he might give you. These words I command you, so that you love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. The world's been hating him for a very, very long time. If you were of the world, the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, for that reason it hates you. This should come as absolutely no surprise to us. Enmity between two seeds. Luke 12, verses 1 through 5. Meanwhile, when an innumerable crowd of people had gathered together, so that they trampled one another, he began saying to his taught ones first, Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And whatever is concealed shall be revealed, and whatever is hidden shall be made known. So whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. But I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that are unable to do any more. But I shall show you whom you shall fear. Fear the one who, after killing, possesses authority to cast into Gehenna. Yea, I say to you, fear him. Do not fear the world. Do not fear what the enemy can do to you. In fact, there's a verse back in the prophets that says one day we are going to laugh at him. Treasure the seed that Yahweh has planted in your heart. Nurture it and water it, no matter, no mind what the world says, how they come after you, or what the persecution is. Sometimes it's outside, and sometimes it's inside. And one more time, rulers, those in authority, those that would turn the heads of the people towards themselves or towards their ideas, rulers have persecuted me without a cause. But at your word my heart stood in awe. I rejoice at your word as one who finds great treasure. Matthew 10, verses 32 to 39. Everyone, therefore, who shall confess me before men, him I shall also confess before my Father who is in the Shemaim. But whoever deny me before men, I shall also deny before my Father who is in the Shemaim. Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. We are not living in the days of peace right now, and anybody that thinks that we are is deceived. For I have come to bring division, a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies are those of his own household. Probably one of the hardest ones to overcome. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and he who does not take up his stake and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who has found his life shall lose it, and he that has lost his life for my sake shall find it. We are to be fully after pursuing the head, striving to enter the door by the word that was originally breathed, that's planted in our heart. And a lot of our own family members don't have this seed planted. They are watering and they are nurturing another seed, and therefore there is division in our biological blood families. Like I said, probably the hardest one to deal with for many of us. Psalm 27, verses 1 through 5. Yahweh is my light and my deliverance. Whom should I fear? Yahweh is the refuge of my life. Whom should I dread? When evildoers come against me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they shall stumble and fall. Stick with the one who is the head of the body. Strive to enter that door by the word that he's breathed. Though an army encamp against me, my heart does not fear. Though battle comes up against me, Even then, I would be trusting. Expect it. It's going to happen. He's going to pursue you. If you are fully following the head of man to strive to enter the door by the word that was originally breathed, he is gunning for you. One matter I asked of Yahweh. This I seek, to dwell in the house of Yahweh all the days of my life, to see the pleasantness of Yahweh, and to inquire in his Hakel. For in the day of evil he hides me in his booth, in his sook. In the covering of his tent he hides me. On a rock he raises me up. Remember, if they hated the seed first, they are certainly going to hate you. They are certainly going to hate us. There is enmity between the enemy's seed and the seed of Yahweh. Back at Exodus 15 verse 9, we saw the enemy say, "My being is satisfied on them." Being, Strong's H5315, Nephesh, from 5314, properly a breathing creature, that is animal, or abstractly vitality, used very widely in a literal, accommodated, or figurative sense, bodily or mental. In the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, we see vitality, the power of subsisting in life, the principle of animation or of life, the act of living, animation. Subsist is to be, to have existence, applicable to matter or spirit, to continue, to retain the present state. Firm we subsist, but possible to swerve. And animation, the act of infusing life, the state of being animated. To animate, to give natural life to quicken, to make alive, as the soul animates the body. To give powers to, or to heighten the powers or effect of a thing. To give spirit or vigor, to infuse courage, joy, or other enlivening passion, to stimulate or incite. Looking back in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see nephesh is at 2424n, soul. At the 2424 root, we see it's a nun, a pei, and a shin. The action is to refresh, the concrete is soul, the whole of a person, the body, the breath, and the mind. I can guarantee you this other seed is not trying to refresh your soul. We see the nun, the seed, inheritance, continue, son, the pei again, the mouth, the breathing, the word, and the shin, which is the two front teeth, press, consume, destruction. So we see a seed that's inside bringing forth a word, even to make one do something, animate, to destroy, i.e. consume. One seed or the other inside is bringing forth who we are and who they are. The being of the enemy will bring forth and cause us to water and nurture a seed or a word that is twisted and cause destruction. I am reminded of all the world's a stage. In our 1828, we saw the soul animates the body, and so it is with his whole being, and those that are under him with their whole being, they look to suck the life out of us, to suck the life out of our soul. So it says his being is satisfied with them. Satisfied. Strong's H4390. Male. A primitive root. To fill or intransitively be full of, in a wide variety of applications, both literally and figuratively. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it's at 1288 EV. The V is fill. At the E root, the action is to fill, and the concrete is first fruits. If that's not huge, I don't know what to say. A conglomeration of ingredients for filling up something. At the 1288 two-letter root, we have the mem and the lam. The action is to speak, the concrete is word, and the abstract is continue. A continuation of segments which fill the whole. The mem is the water, the cleansing, the blood. The lamb is the shepherd staff, the instructions, the goading. And the El is the ox head, the strong leader, power. Nothing would satisfy the enemy more than you not being cleansed, being in the midst of chaos, filling you up with chaos, which is the mem, not following after the shepherd and the instructions, not following after the head and striving to get through the door, that was who he was pursuing, and to come back to El himself, to come and be first fruits in the first resurrection, in the priesthood from which the bride will be pulled. That is the goal of his entire being, and nothing will satisfy him more. Another thing the enemy says in Exodus 15:9 is that he draws out his sword. Let's take just a quick look at the sword. Strong's H 2719, Chereb from 2717, drought. Also, a cutting instrument from its destructive effect, as a knife, sword, or other sharp implement. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it's at 2199 N. Sword, a weapon used to lay waste to a city. Waste, a dry or desolate place. At the root, 2199, the action is to waste, and the concrete is sword. We see the het, which is the wall, means to divide, to be on one side or the other, the fence. We see again the resh, the head of man, the first, the top, the beginning. And the beit, which is the house, which means family, or inn. So I thought it was interesting here we see drought. We see dry wasteland. And what is this lay waste to a city? Can we suppose the enemy would be satisfied with nothing more than destroying who would be the stones in the wall when the new Yerushalayim comes down? So they don't ever get back to the head of man and into the house for the millennial reign, thus negating them being part of the bride? The sword, the word, does not belong to the enemy. He can only twist what it truly says. His sword is looking to divide us from the head of man and his house. That is all he can do, is twist it and divide us. His whole goal is to lay waste to the city that would be in the end. We see a real-life example of this in Nehemiah when they are rebuilding the wall. There are several different enemies that come and try to thwart Nehemiah's plan. And we also see the brethren having one to build and one to stand with his sword in order to protect from the enemy. I would suggest everyone read how the enemy worked in Nehemiah. This is how it is today for those heading to be the stones in the wall in the rebuilding of the new Yerushalayim. And the last thing the enemy says in this verse is, my hand destroys them. Hand. H3027, Yod. A primitive word, a hand. The open one indicating power, means direction, etc. In distinction from 3709, the closed one. It's in the ancient Hebrew lexicon at 1211 AN. We see at the end it's the hand. At the A, it's hand. With the hand, one can throw away or grab hold, kill or heal, make or destroy. At the two-letter family root, we see the yod and the dal. The action is throw, the concrete is hand, and the abstract is thanks. The only one the enemy's probably giving thanks to is himself. That being aside, the pictograph yod is a picture of a hand. The dal is a picture of a door that allows movement in and out of the tent. Combined, these mean hand moves. The hand is the part of the body that enables man to perform many works. One thing I can say is that the enemy would like to use his hand to keep you from going in the door. No doubt about it. I think it's interesting we see here, with the hand one can throw away, grab hold. To kill, That is definitely something he is doing. Or heal, not. To make, making something for himself maybe, or to destroy. John 10, verses 7 to 10. Yeshua therefore said to them again, Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. Whoever enters through me shall be saved, and shall go in and shall go out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to slaughter and to destroy. I have come that they might possess life, I would say life everlasting, and that they might possess it beyond measure. The hand of the enemy is to steal, to kill, and to destroy, to keep you from entering the door. So his hand destroys. Strong's H3421. Yaresh, a primitive root to occupy, be driving out previous tenants and possessing in their place. By implication, to seize, to rob, to inherit, also to expel, to impoverish, and to ruin. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it's at 1458 LV. At the V, we see it's inherit. At the L, the action is to inherit, and the abstract is inheritance. The inheritor becomes the head of the family. At the two-letter family root, we see the resh and the shin. The action is to inherit, the concrete is the head. The priesthood will be inheriting Yahweh, the head. The pictograph resh is a picture of the head. The head of the tribe, chief, or family father, is passed from generation to generation. The head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family, the head of a person, place, thing, or time. The whole goal of the hand of the enemy? To keep you from your inheritance, which is Yahweh, to keep you from being first fruits, to keep you from being part of the bride. He is looking to destroy our inheritance. Let's look at some verses to confirm all these things. Psalm 119, verses 149 to 152. Hear my voice according to your kindness, O Yahweh. Revive me according to your right ruling. Those who pursue mischief have drawn near. They've come close. They're near at hand or among. They have been far from your Torah. You are near, close, or at hand, O Yahweh, and all your commands are truth. Of old I have known your witnesses, that you have founded them forever. Let us strive to enter the door, be pursuing Yahweh, and expect those who are pursuing mischief to be pursuing us. Psalm 119:84. How many are the days of your servant? When do you execute right ruling on those who persecute me? The proud have dug pits for me, which is not according to your Torah. All your commands are trustworthy. They have persecuted me with lies. Help me. They almost made an end of me on earth. But I did not forsake your orders. I continued to be under the head who has been since from the beginning, and strive to enter the door from the word which he breathed, and they tried to make an end of me. They dug pits for me, and they persecuted me. Turning to Revelation 12, first let's look at verses 1 through 6. And a great sign was seen in the Shemaim, a woman. This woman is not the bride yet. The bride, this woman, who will be the bride, the ones preparing and the ones being prepared. This is the priesthood that the bride will be drawn from. The ones preparing and the ones being prepared are one and the same. This woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. Giving birth for both us, the ones being prepared, and for others, the ones we are preparing. And another sign, now we're taking a look at a different time frame. And another sign was seen in the heavens, and see a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. And his tail draws 1/3 of the stars in the heaven and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a male child. We're the ones doing this through the seed. This is us birthing the seed, the word that is in our heart. Miriam did it in the physical. She birthed the seed. But as a priesthood, we are birthing the seed and not only preparing ourselves, but preparing others. And the enemy has been out to devour this seed since the very almost beginning. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught away for the throne and for Elohim. And the woman fled into the wilderness. Where are we now? We are in the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there for time, and half a time. And it is the enemy's whole entire purpose, while we are here in the wilderness, to devour the seed. Verses 12 and 13. Because of this, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. This is referring to the verses above. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has little time. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. This is Yeshua and us planting Yeshua's seed. Verse 17. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, the one who was planting the seed. And he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Elohim and possessing the witness, the full testimony of Yeshua Messiah. This should be us now, and those who we plant the seed in, those guarding the commands of Elohim, and again possessing the full testimony, the witness of Yeshua Messiah. Revelation 14:12. Here is the endurance of the set-apart ones, all those that have been set apart, whether they've been set apart in the first resurrection or now they will be set apart at the second resurrection. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief that it is Yahweh who came to redeem us, Yahshua, Yahweh's redemption. Everything must be set apart and Kodesh unto him. Revelation 20, verses 4 through 15. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the lives of those who had been beheaded. Those who have beheaded themselves from the head of this world, and come under the head of man, our head, who has been since from the beginning, because of the witness they bore to Yeshua, and because of the word of Elohim. We know that Paul was actually beheaded because he beheaded himself from the head of this world and came underneath the head of man. We see that they had the testimony, the witness of the fullness of who Yeshua, Yahweh's redemption is and what he had done. And because of the word of Elohim. and who did not worship the beast, nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads. He was not at the forefront of their minds, which comes from the seed that they were watering and nurturing in their hearts. And you can rest assured that he pursued these ones day and night, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands. They weren't doing the works of the enemy. And they lived and reigned, first resurrection, priesthood, with Messiah for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and set apart is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these, but they shall be priests of Elohim, the Anointed One, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Hasatan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray which are on the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the set-apart ones, and the beloved city, and fire came down from Elohim out of the Shemaim, and consumed them. And the devil, who led them astray, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. Seems like the strong hand, the outstretched arm of Elohim, takes care of the enemy once again, this time once and for all. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him who is sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found in it for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books, according to their works. What was written in the Torah? What was written in the prophets? What's been written since the very beginning? And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. We can choose to pursue one head or another. But if we are pursuing the head of man and striving to enter the door, Yeshua Messiah, by the words that were spoken from the very beginning, we can be sure that this other head will be pursuing us until the day of the first resurrection. He will be pursuing those during the 1,000-year millennial reign until the second resurrection. And then we'll have Shemini Azeret, the last great day. The enemy who is pursuing you would like nothing more than to take you with him. And for those that were in the first resurrection, the ones being set apart and the ones setting apart. Revelation 21, verses 1 and 2. And I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yochanan, saw the set-apart city, renewed Yerushalayim, coming down out of the Shemaim from Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Verses 9 through 12. And one of the 7 messengers, who held the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues, came to me and spoke with me, saying, Come, and I shall show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and he showed me the great city, the set apart Jerusalem, the one that the enemy would have otherwise liked to laid waste to, and did his best to do just that, descending out of the Shemaim from Elohim, having the esteem of Elohim, and her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and having a great and high wall, having 12 gates, and at the gates 12 messengers, and names written on them, which are those of the 12 tribes of the children of Yisrael. For those who have not been immersed into the body of Yeshua Messiah, in the correct name of Yeshua, this would be your first step, is to be immersed into the body of Yeshua, to begin to do the things that he spoke to the tribes of Israel to do, that he spoke to the priesthood to do from the very beginning. Set yourself up for an opportunity to be in the first resurrection, to be part of the bride. But know this, that the enemy will pursue you. This other seed that's inside will pursue you all along the way. But there is a way to overcome. Hallelujah. In the description box below, I have placed a few links to help you along the way.